The rusty old sign, barely visible through the thick fog, read Ravensbrook. Eliza Moore, her knuckles white on the steering wheel, drove past it. The tires crunched on the gravel road. Eliza exhaled, a plume of white in the chilly air. She was an investigative journalist, used to the grit of the city. This quaint coastal town, shrouded in mist, was a different beast altogether. Eliza had come seeking solace, a break from the relentless news cycle, the constant pressure. Ravensbrook, with its supposed tranquility, had seemed ideal. But as she drove deeper into the town, a sense of unease crept up her spine. The fog seemed to press in, suffocating. It clung to the quaint cottages lining the road, muffling the sounds of the sea. Reaching the inn, she parked and stepped out. The air was thick with the smell of salt and something else, something indefinable. A chill wind whipped around her, carrying the faintest whisper. Eliza shivered, pulling her coat tighter. Ravensbrook's silence was unnerving. It wasn't the peaceful quiet she'd expected. It felt watchful, expectant. Eliza grabbed her suitcase, the weight oddly comforting. She approached the inn, its windows glowing with warm, inviting light. As she reached for the handle, the wind picked up again. The whisper returned, clearer this time. A single word, barely audible, yet it sent a shiver down her spine. Secrets.
Welcome. You must be Miss Moore. Lovely town you have here. Peaceful, quiet. Rooms at the end of the hall. You'll sleep well here. Nothing to disturb you.
Mrs. Fletcher, the innkeeper, greeted Eliza with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. Her gaze lingered on Eliza for a beat too long, her fingers nervously twisting a ring. Eliza tried to shake off the unsettling feeling. She commented, trying to sound casual. Eliza, ever the journalist, noticed the way Mrs. Fletcher's gaze darted towards the window, towards the swirling fog. It was as if she expected something to emerge from it, or perhaps someone. This wasn't the peaceful haven Eliza had envisioned. There was a current of something else beneath the surface, something just out of reach. Later, unpacking in her room, Eliza found herself drawn to the window. The fog had thickened, obscuring the town below. It was as if Ravensbrook itself was exhaling secrets into the mist. Eliza thought about the whispers she'd heard upon arriving. Were they just figments of her imagination, or was there something more to this town? Ravensbrook, she realized, was a shroud, a place where things were hidden, buried deep, and Eliza, with a journalist's instinct, felt a growing compulsion to unravel its mysteries. The following morning, Eliza stepped out into Ravensbrook. The fog had thinned, revealing a town trapped in time. Weathered cottages lined the narrow streets, their windows dark and vacant. The silence from the night before lingered, heavy and oppressive. It was as if the town itself was holding its breath. Her footsteps echoed on the cobblestone streets as she made her way towards the center of town. A butcher shop, its windows displaying an unappetizing array of meats, stood opposite a small grocery store. Eliza paused, trying to get her bearings. The strangeness of Ravensbrook was seeping into her, a slow, creeping unease. She entered the grocery store, the bell above the door jingling. Mrs. Blackwell, a woman with a pinched face and watchful eyes, looked up from behind the counter. Eliza offered a tentative smile.
Good morning. Just passing through, wondering if you could tell me a bit about Ravensbrook. Not much to tell. Quiet place. Peaceful. Anything else I can help you with?
Mrs. Blackwell's smile was as thin as paper. Her eyes darted towards the door, then back to Eliza. The dismissal in her voice was clear. Eliza tried a different tactic.
I heard there were some lovely hiking trails around here. Trails ain't safe. Fog rolls in quick. Best to stay in town.
The conversation, Eliza realized, was over. A wall of silence had been erected. Leaving the grocery store, Eliza felt a growing sense of frustration. The townsfolk were like stone, their faces etched with a shared secret. Ravensbrook was a town determined to keep its secrets buried. As she reached for the door handle, a voice startled her.
You the writer? And don't ask about Lily.
Before Eliza could respond, the man melted back into the fog. Lily. Who was Lily and why shouldn't she ask? A wound Ravensbrook didn't want to reopen. Determined to uncover the truth about Lily, Eliza made her way towards the town library. It was a small, unassuming building tucked between a bakery and an antique shop. The air inside was stale, thick with the smell of dust and old paper. Eliza breathed it in, a sense of anticipation building.
Looking for something specific?
Mr. Hemmings, the librarian, was a man who seemed as ancient as the books surrounding him. He peered at Eliza over his spectacles, his gaze sharp and inquisitive.
Looking for something specific?
He rasped, his voice like the rustle of old parchment.
Yes. I'm looking for information on a young woman named Lily Palmer.
Mr. Hemmings's eyes narrowed, his gaze boring into Eliza. A long moment of silence stretched between them, broken only by the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner.
The past is best left undisturbed. Some things are better left forgotten.
He turned away, his attention returning to the book in front of him.
I believe Lily's disappearance is important. Her story deserves to be told.
Mr. Hemmings sighed, a sound laden with years of weariness. He gestured towards a dusty cabinet in the corner.
Local archives are in there, but be warned, Miss Moore, some truths are better left buried.
Eliza's pulse quickened as she approached the old cabinet. Its wooden surface was cool and rough beneath her fingertips. She pulled open one of the creaking drawers. The name scrawled across it sent a shiver down her spine. Palmer, Lily. A missing person report, a faded photograph of a smiling young woman. Missing person reports, each separated by a 6-month interval. Ravensbrook's facade of tranquility was crumbling, revealing a chilling truth. Eliza's mind raced, trying to make sense of the pattern hidden within the files. Every 6 months, like clockwork, someone disappeared from Ravensbrook. No explanation, no trace, just an eerie silence that descended upon the town after each vanishing. She pulled out another file, her fingers trembling slightly. This one belonged to a young man named Thomas Ashton, last seen on May 11th, exactly 6 months before Lily Palmer. His file mirrored hers. A photo, a missing person report, and then nothing. It was as if Ravensbrook swallowed its victims whole, leaving no trace behind. Eliza's gaze fell on a small handwritten note at the bottom of Thomas Ashton's file. The writing was cramped, almost illegible. She squinted, deciphering the faded ink. The fog takes them. It always takes them. The words sent a chill down her spine. The fog. It was always present in Ravensbrook, a constant, suffocating blanket. Was it more than just weather? Could it be connected to the disappearances, a malevolent force that claimed the town's residents as its due? Eliza's instincts screamed at her, urging her to flee this place, to escape while she still could. But the journalist in her refused to back down. She had stumbled upon a story, a dark and terrifying secret hidden beneath the surface of this sleepy coastal town, and she was determined to unravel it, no matter the cost. Section 3. The Pattern. Her mind working furiously. Dates, names, faces, they swirled before her, forming a macabre puzzle that she needed to solve. The disappearances were too frequent, too patterned to be random. Something sinister was at play in Ravensbrook, and she needed to understand it. She arranged the files chronologically, her eyes scanning. Stark and undeniable. Every 6 months, on the 11th, someone vanished. The consistency was chilling, the precision of it sending a tremor of fear through her. The next day in the 11th, Eliza's heart pounded in her chest, a frantic rhythm. Deadly cycle, and she was now trapped within its grasp. Eliza knew she had to act fast. She needed to find out what happened on the 11th, what sinister event unfolded in Ravensbrook. People were tight-lipped, their silence a form of complicity. She had to find another way, another path to the truth. As the clock on the library wall chimed, each clang resonating through the silence, she would be ready for the 11th. She would be waiting, watching, and she would uncover the truth behind Ravensbrook's disappearances, even if it was the last thing she did. The 11th of May dawned gray and heavy, the air thick with anticipation. Eliza could feel it in the way the townsfolk moved, their eyes darting to the sky. The more she learned, the more certain she became. Something terrible happened in Ravensbrook on this day. Eliza had decided to return to the cliffs, the place where she had first sensed the presence of something otherworldly. As dusk descended, Eliza felt a prickling sensation on the back of her neck, as if she were being watched. The fog was rolling in, faster than before, swirling around her feet, obscuring the path. This was it. This was the night the truth would be revealed. The fog thickened, engulfing Eliza in its damp embrace. It was disorienting, the familiar world fading into a swirling gray abyss. And then she saw them. Their outlines sharpened, resolving into figures tall and gaunt. Their eyes, when they met hers, were empty. Eliza's breath caught in her throat, her instincts screaming at her to run. But her feet were rooted to the spot, frozen by fear. These were the Watchers, the guardians of Ravensbrook's terrible secret. Eliza felt a chill run down her spine as they surrounded her. As the figure's hand drew closer, Eliza's finger trembled on the camera's shutter button. Panic seized Eliza. She stumbled back from the looming figures, their forms shifting, swirling in the thickening fog. Her heart hammered against her ribs, a frantic drumbeat against the silence of the Watchers. They made no move to grab her, to restrain her, yet she felt utterly trapped. The wind howled around her, whipping her hair across her face, the scent of salt and brine almost overwhelming. The edge of the cliff was close. She could sense it, a yawning abyss just beyond the veil of fog. Eliza struggled against the grip, her heart plummeting to her stomach. She had been so close, so tantalizingly close to freedom. Turning, she came face to face with one of the Watchers. Its features, no longer obscured by the fog, were both beautiful and terrifying. Androgynous, with skin like alabaster and eyes that glowed with an inner light, it regarded her with a sorrow that cut deeper than any blade. No words were spoken, yet Eliza understood. The Watcher pulled her closer to the edge of the cliff. Eliza opened her eyes and gazed down at the churning water far below. The fog swirled and danced, obscuring the rocks, creating an illusion of infinite depth. The impact never came. Instead of crashing against jagged rocks, Eliza found herself deposited gently on solid ground. Disoriented, she slowly sat up, her head spinning, her limbs heavy. The fog that had swallowed her was gone, replaced by an eerie, luminescent glow emanating from the walls around her. As Eliza watched, mesmerized and terrified, a figure began to emerge from the center of the cavern floor. It rose slowly, growing out of the very stone itself, its form shifting, coalescing until it stood before her, a being of pure energy, radiating an aura of immense power. It was neither male nor female, human nor beast, yet it possessed a strange beauty, a terrifying grace that held Eliza captive. The being's gaze pierced through Eliza, reading her thoughts, her fears, her growing understanding. The balance must be maintained, it intoned, its voice a low rumble that shook the very foundations of the cavern. A life for a life, a soul for a soul. Eliza Moore was gone. The details, like the wisps of fog that clung to Ravensbrook's soul, were elusive, evanescent. The townsfolk, their faces etched with a familiar blend of apprehension and resignation, spoke of her departure in hushed tones, when they spoke of her at all. Life in Ravensbrook, if it could be called such, resumed its languid, unsettling rhythm. The fog continued to roll in from the sea, blanketing the town in its damp embrace. The townsfolk went about their daily routines, their faces masks of stoicism, their eyes betraying a shared secret, a burden passed down through generations. The sun, a pale ghost behind the perpetual curtain of fog, dipped below the horizon. Ravensbrook, cloaked in shadows and whispers, settled deeper into its uneasy truce. Eliza Moore was no more than a ripple in the town's memory, a fleeting presence swallowed by the insatiable appetite of legend. Her disappearance, like those before her, had been absorbed into the town's fabric, another strand in the intricate, macabre tapestry of Ravensbrook's history. Ravensbrook endured, a testament to the enduring power of secrets, the weight of unspoken bargains. The fog, a silent conspirator, continued its relentless dance, obscuring, isolating, preserving the town's eerie tranquility. The Watchers, their duty etched into their ageless faces, remained vigilant, guardians of a pact forged in blood and shrouded in mist.